What is it with animes that aren't, like, inherently supposed to be cute, having such cute stuff in it sometimes? I mean, I'm not complaining, but it does kind of make me wonder.
For me to dream about him, this isn't like you. Huh?
Rosette never gets discouraged.
Oh, man. Chrono Crusade had cute elements in it. I mean, look at those first 2 episodes, but I mean, it didn't really get that way near the end. It wasn't all meant to be cute, especially that deep philosophical ending. Let's see, what other cute stuff do we have?
I wanted to ask you something, Sis. Would you like to stay with us for good?
Want to stay.
The problem is, if you stay with us, you might just get yourself killed. You sure you still want to stay?
Sis not die.
Well, Sis, the thing is...
Sis not die.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I had scripted a video on Scrap Princess, but I'm waiting. I'm gonna wait to release that one. I mean, Scrap Princess isn't quite the right time. Well, let's see what else we got.
Grave! Grave! Hi, Grave. I'm glad you're okay. What's wrong? You aren't hurt, are you? What is it?
I want to review that too, but we already did Devil May Cry, the animated series, a while back. God, I really do want to talk about Gungrave someday. No, I gotta wait, Gotta respect my ideals.
Oh, and Carmen, what do we do about Joshua?
I told him where to meet us. I think he's on the rebound.
Man, kid, you're incredible.
Vaughn, we should get going.
No, we can't review the perfect anime yet. Sorry, folks, that's gonna be a while. But hey, at least you know Gunnock Sword does have some cute stuff in it.
ダメだよ僕たち同じチームなんだロールちゃんロール様よロールちゃん、はあ、まだわからないの
Okay, are any of these something I can even remotely review without being, like, uncomfortable about waiting to release it yet?
He hasn't noticed me yet.
大丈夫だよ、ベル。
そいつはわしのものだ。そうだ、金ならいくらでも出す。だからそいつをわしに。よくもベルを。13トーテンボール。
ベルは誰にも渡さないよ。
Okay, I am starting to notice a pattern here. Let me check my Amazon order history. Oh yeah, that's right, I have Black Blood Brothers. There wasn't any cute stuff in that, right?
Wake up, brother! Wake up, wake up, wake up! Wake up, brother! Wake up, brother! Wake... Oh, you're up! That wasn't nice.
That's what I get for assuming. Man, this one, I don't remember a lot about this one, but yeah, that was definitely me and my brother Scott way back when. Pretty accurate, actually. Also, what the heck are you doing down there, Buster? I do notice you, I'm just ignoring you. What? Boop!
Hee hee.
Man, you just really want to be in the video, don't you?
Would you rather me the source of all evil be in the video?
Damn it, Jane! You always have to butt in at the worst times. Luckily for me and the safety of society, I've prepared a secret stock of weapons to deal with you and your evil ways. Quick! Grab the machine gun! Hello, mates. I am the Safe Buster, one of Quint's clones, and this will be one of the first times I've made a video in a while, yeah? God, stop with the overdramatic voice. It's hard to understand you. What do you mean, overly dramatic voice? Never mind. Use your original voice.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Ulrich already made fun of his voice, so now he's gonna let me do my voice the way I want to. Anyways, as always, this is a retrospective, so we do recommend watching the other videos, or at the very least skimming over them to get a general idea, but for those who don't want to sit through those videos as long as short as they will be, don't worry, we will do a brief or sometimes overly drawn out recap of the general idea of what to get through here. We've done this in other videos, some of the recaps being longer or shorter, but this time around, Quint, you usually talk about what time versus how recent or back in the sibling anime tradition you had watched these animes. So why don't you in this recap, instead of going over how you felt about each series, why don't you go over like what time, how recent you watched each one of them?
Huh, that's a strangely good idea, Buster. Alright, I guess I could say what time frame / history I have with these, rather than my generic recaps.
Hey now, we know I never come up with original ideas being a world-class thief. I steal ideas, I don't make them. That was just something I overheard Maverick and Ulrich talking about.
I should have known as much. Oh well. Well, to recap, I'll go over what I've watched in chronological order of, well, when I first watched it versus the order in the playlist. Obviously, Sailor Moon was the earliest, where I watched the DIC / Cloverway dub, and of course, I had watched the Viz exclusive Sailor Stars later during a summer after the 2015 through 2005 retrospective, which, you know, I saw, the exclusive Sailor Star season. And then during the retrospective, I watched the entire series in Viz, which naturally included watching Sailor Stars again. After that, I saw Fullmetal Alchemist 03 and most of. I didn't see the first 4 episodes, so I started on episode 5 of 03, but I saw the rest of it, including the movie Conquer of Shambhala. And Brotherhood, I didn't see as much of. Like, I saw, like, the first, 3 or so episodes of Brotherhood, and just kind of tuned out thinking it was just a recap, until I later saw my brother watch, well, the late series where I tuned in here and there, but I didn't really finish Brotherhood, or really remember all that much about 03 till, well, my binge for the retrospective. And then, late on in about really late 2015, just before the very last anime, the perfect anime, Gun X Sword, I watched Trigun, which, as I've already said in the intro of that video, Trigun was the series that introduced me to my favorite anime and perfect anime, and it's also really ironic that Gun X Sword was the very last anime of the 2005 to 2015 sibling anime tradition. Then I had ordered Devil May Cry, the animated series, on Amazon, just with the intent of watching it and keeping it on my shelf alongside Soul Eater with some birthday money in May of 2020. Then, after a few more animes, I had bought WATV and started a retrospective, and I've already gone into mass detail about WATV, so there's not too much need to dwell on that here, but WATV is a pivotal part of the retrospective and my history with anime. After that was DxD, and yes, I'm going this off of my Amazon order history, since I naturally watched the things I had ordered earliest. Then was CCS, which, to be fair, I had watched on Netflix first and ordered the Clear Card arc, as atrocious as it is afterwards, but I had seen the original series first on Netflix and then ordered the actual original series on a physical copy when I could find an affordable one, which I did. But I did have the Clear Card arc first on my shelf, even if I did see the original, well, first on Netflix. I just didn't have the physical copy, but my Amazon order history is proof of this, in addition to my Netflix histories, so I think that gets the job said and done, all things considered. And yes, I am still delaying the Clear Card arc review, since that arc really takes CCS down for me. I'm not even kidding when I say the Clear Card arc is literally the one thing that prevents Cardcaptor Sakura from being absolutely amazing. But we'll get to that in that video, as delayed as it is. But just know that my thoughts on it are not too high. After that was Berserk. Yeah, quite a surprise. And this, of course, includes the 1997 anime, the Golden Age arc movies, and the, oh, well, infamously 2016 CG animated one, which I said wasn't too bad. Then was Hellsing Classic, which I of course got first before Ultimate, since Hellsing Ultimate was pretty pricey, and I bought Hellsing Classic to see if I really wanted to go for Ultimate. I saw a Classic, really liked it, watched Ultimate, bada bing bada boom. Of course, similarly to other series, these things were not that cheap. Like, some of them cost me as much as $60, which would naturally be the full price of, well, a PS4 game or a Switch game at launch. But most of these series I've been pretty satisfied with so far. Like Chrono Crusade. I mean, Chrono Crusade I gave a 10 out of 10 because it was just brilliant. I mean, 2003 Chrono Crusade. Damn, what a masterpiece. However, not everything I bought was a masterpiece though. I mean, look at my Thanksgiving where I covered Elfen Lied, and we know how much that anime sucked for me. Again, dark characters was a standout thing for it, but it became really hard to get invested when I could just see it coming. New character introduced, dark backstory. Another new character introduced, dark backstory. Another new character introduced. What do they have? Oh, a dark backstory. See what I mean? I know Elfen Lied is actually pretty popular, but I'm not exactly hating it for the controversial stuff. That works. I'm saying they didn't really make it that much of a surprise, and with every character having some dark backstory, it made the impact of the, oh my gosh, dark backstory, wear off for the third or so character they did in Beyond. And that finally brings us to Black Blood Brothers, a series which, okay, I had watched way back when, but why am I putting it here at the very late part of the chronology? Well, that's because I don't remember when in the sibling anime tradition I had watched this.
Wow, that's a new one. You actually don't remember when you watched this? Man, Quint, you have had like an insane memory, but like the fact that you actually can't remember, I think that's new for you all this time around.
True, my memory is pretty good, but this time around it did seem to let me down a little bit.
You're very informative, Quint. Ever thought of being like a teacher or a lecturer? You're so informative.
I wish, but there's no anime class, even though I really wish there was in schools.
Ah, that's what you think. Though there are people who do that.
Do a GeForce RTX 3090 graphics card. Here we have the GeForce RTX 3090 Chan. Okay. See, we have she's smug. She has a little computer chip hair clip in her hair, and she's smug. Why? Because everyone wants her. She's hot and she knows it.
Oh, wow. How about that? There literally is an entire YouTube channel that's themed like an anime lecture class. Huh. Well, I'm giving this guy an automatic subscribe. Hey, good work, Professor Lando. I really love the content, by the way. Such a creative idea, and I've seen a few of your videos, so good work.
Yeet, yeet, weeb alert, siren!
It's not nice to call me a weeb. Cut that out.
Ah, but senpai!
Can it, Buster? That's enough of that.
You lost your privileges. You insulted me, and you're wasting a lot of time, so your debut ends there.
Well, it was fun while it lasted. Alright. Anyways, I gotta stop wasting time. I'm sorry. Buster has to stop wasting time. As previously remarked, my history with this series is quite the odd memory given how I don't remember a lot about it. Not even when during, like, what year of the tradition. Black Blood Brothers, or B3 for short, because, you know, Black Blood Brothers, BBB, Triple B, why did I waste time explaining after I just said that? B3 was a series I watched with my brother on, like, maybe Netflix? Maybe we rented it from, like, a Blockbuster or something in, like, 2009, 2010-ish? See, I don't remember, but, again, I don't remember, like, when during that tradition we had watched this. I think my sister was present in the room when we watched, B3 as well, so it was one that all three of us shared, if I remember correctly, but she probably wasn't paying attention. Danielle was likely drawing or playing her DS on the side since she wasn't as invested as me or Scott, naturally. But, like, still, like, my memory is, like, really hazy. Usually I can remember a lot, and as you can see, I'm definitely struggling right now. But, yeah, when I brought this up with my brother and sister, they're like, how do you remember this stuff? And, well, even this time, Scott insists, my memory's not as helpful as it usually is. Now, I don't really know why I'm bringing this up, since they're probably not going to watch this.
You can
but
remember when you were
whatever.
2 years old in the backyard of the Compass Boxers, yet you can't remember to put your dish in the dishwasher.
Normally, I'd yell at you for bringing that up, but since it's true, I'll let it slide, Buster.
I'll count my blessings, senpai.
Don't call me that! Mash Curulate already did that to Helen back in the Virtual Brutality series I did a long time back.
I want to become a servant worthy of you, Senpai. That way, I can be of some use to you during this training. I'll do my best.
Oh God, what am I doing with my life?
Then Saber showed up to make you play more games, giving you more cringe content.
I'll obey my master.
Okay, please make this not fan servicey.
Which vacation plan will you choose?
Might as well do them in order. Well, this got weird. I mean, it's already been weird.
Itinerary that feeling the wind on your face can be very exhilarating.
Wait.
Why don't we head this way?
Oh no. This is gonna suck so bad. Man, okay. Well, at the very least, this girl seems less... Okay, I'm suspicious.
Oh yeah, she did it. Just stop distracting me! Alright, I'm gonna be taking over this video now with that bozo out of the picture for the time being. B3, which, just to remind you another time, stands for Black Blood Brothers for short, B3, just double checking that, was a series itself I didn't remember a lot of till after I had watched it again for my retrospective. If you had asked me before I had rewatched it, my memories and thoughts would have went something like this. I thought Jiro was a cool protagonist, Kotaru was cute but friggin' annoying, the fight scenes were amazing all around, The side characters felt extremely pointless, including Mimiko. The series was too short, Kaso was a seductive yet hateable villain, and the ending was terrible due to how open it was. It didn't feel conclusive. Now, when picking this up, I had felt a few things would change from my fragmented memories, since again, this was a very open thing, and I was a child back then, and I didn't have as much of an open mind or a critical eye as I did now. At least not as fair of a critical eye. I mean, look at Sailor Moon, where I said classic Season 1's Dark Kingdom arc used to be the middle of the series for me, but upon rewatching it, it became my least favorite season. And then proceeded to talk about Sailor Moon R, which I had remembered not a lot about, and I put it like really low in my ranking because I thought, hey, if I don't remember, it must not been that good. But then rewatching it, I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good, and bumped it up to the middle. See, these kind of changes I'm open and usually more accepting of with the maturing and viewing of anime as entertainment. As a kid, I used anime as an escape, a way for me to just, get away from harsh reality. And if I watch a series that didn't make me good or won't feel good, I thought the anime itself wasn't good. But I'm not like that anymore. I watch anime as entertainment, not an escape. So I tried to be as open as I possibly could while keeping my previous expectations in the back of my mind so I don't get too upset. I ordered B3 on Amazon. I binged all 12 episodes in a single sitting for the first time around, and much like WATV, I did multiple binges. Now, there's a reason for this, but let me explain this first. Again, the first binge, I did all 12 episodes in a single day, and I was up until like 11, and this was on a weekend too, so, I mean, it got the job done. I imagine not everyone can watch it that way. Then my second binge, I did across about 7 days, where I would have normally been, back then in the sibling anime tradition, where I'd have, school or, other activities forcing me to go away from the TV, where I'd only be able to watch 1 or 2 episodes a day across 7 days, where I would finish the series by then. I did this so I could, tap into that mentality, since people out there probably might have a similar scenario as that. And then my third binge, which was right before this review's recording, I did across 3 days, watching about 3 or 4 episodes per sitting, then scripting, watching the next bit of the series, then scripting again. It sounds pointless, I know, it sounds actually really pointless, but I did this to be rational and fair. Because, well, I've rewatched several animes. I mean, look at WATV. I watched that like 4 times, mainly due to the ending, but because reviewing an anime requires a different watching mindset than just watching it casually. And Devil May Cry, the animated series, I had watched multiple times because it was really short, and I played the games recently to compare as well. And Trigun, which I had also even watched a few times with, other people, including my girlfriend. Yes, my girlfriend means a lot to me when we watch anime. And just for any of those who have a crush on me, sorry, I'm already taken. I got a girlfriend. But hey, regular friendship is still on the table, so bada bing, bada boom. Now, I do these reviews because I want to, well, first and foremost, I want to have fun, and I want to rationally judge these shows based on the type of watchers, myself included, naturally. Just because I am able to binge 12 episodes across a single night or sitting doesn't mean everyone else has that luxury. So that was the purpose. That was the purpose of watching it multiple times. And also another reason why watching it multiple times, I personally encourage for reviews. Now, obviously not like long series. Long series, you probably should script as you watch. Because, I mean, if I did that for, like, say, Dragon Ball, I would be an old man by that point. And while I did do it for Sailor Moon, that's because I had the DIC/Cloverway under my belt, and I could just jump right into the Viz dub. Also, when watching anime multiple times, it also allows me to, again, specifically for the shorter series, put my focus on things I wouldn't have normally done on the first watch through. Usually on the first watch through, I look for, the story, the characters, that kind of thing, just to get me invested in the story. And then on further watch throughs, I examine other things I don't normally would have done on my initial binges. Like, I pay attention to the animation, the audio, the actors, to let it sink in more. So that's another perk of rewatching anime. If I was to give B3 a score just based off my memories back then, I would have shockingly given it a 5 out of 10. The exact same score as Wild Arms Twilight Venom. I had a chat with a Discord user who I knew at my high school named Josh. I'll keep his Discord tag a secret because I want to honor Josh's privacy, since he had mentioned this anime to me. And I said it was good but needed more. And after a brief chat with him, it piqued my curiosity, and I ordered it on Amazon, rewatched it, and that brings us to, today, here and now. I mean, goofy stories in my videos are nothing short of, tradition. I mean, I wore the kitty uniform in my Sailor Moon R's interest kit. I even have like a maid kitty uniform to, add to it. But obviously, that'd be a little bit too fan servicey to put in. But hey, just some goofy stuff to throw in. Gotta, inject a bit of personality into my videos. So yeah, I just mentioned I do have a maid kitty uniform. And it's pretty fan servicey, so I'm not gonna show it.
What did you say about fanservice-y pictures?
What the? Sheen! How did you get back here? I shot you with a machine gun! What? Alright, well, looks like I have to pull out the weapon stash again. Quick! Grab the chainsaw!
3 days later.
Jeez, he is a persistent fighter. How long have I been not recording for? Alright. Anyway, sorry, that took me a little bit longer to fight Jean with a raw chainsaw. Now, with this being the overly long intro sequence, I mean, look how long it is this time, I have another surprising revelation to make. I did not even remember the intro to B3. Like, at all. Maybe it's because my siblings skipped it and I got some goldfish crackers or another snack during the opportunity if they didn't skip it, but I remembered nothing about this intro, not even the music. Going in, I expected a simple intro. I mean, this is a mere 12-episode series, so I put my expectations really low. But boy, I was wrong. Wow, look how long it took you to get to the actual intro of the anime itself. Great editing, Quince. Just great editing. Oh, hush! It's tradition by this point. I can't exactly help it. Now, that's why I've included timestamps so people can skip through this. But now let's actually talk about the intro of B3 itself. Similarly to all the other anime intros we've covered, whether it be Catch Me If You Can from CCS, Tsubasa Wa Pleasure Line from Chrono Crusade, and The World Without Logos from Hellsing Classic, heck, even the ones I already knew by heart like Moonlight Descento or Humanite Typhoon from Sailor Moon and Trigun, I went into this intro with a blank slate, quite literally since I didn't even remember this one. I have attainably fair, yet moderately high standards for anime intros. It should be unique and have its own identity in both music and visuals. It should encapsulate the main feeling or multiple feelings of the series, and it shouldn't be too long or too short, much like my intros. The intro to Black Blood Brothers, or B3 again, B3 is Black Blood Brothers for short, is quite the spectacle. The name of our intro song here is Memories of Tomorrow. Of all the intros we've covered this far, I think this one is easily my favorite. Yeah, surprise, surprise. The music has the slow and eerie feel for the vampire stuff at bits, and then the banging epic rock for, the action. It also has the sorrowful yet hopeful quest vibe, which is also really fitting. I ain't a huge fan of lyrics in songs, because anyone can sing, but playing instruments is a bit more complicated, but I found the lyrics and voice a very good fit this time around. Translating lyrics is much like in other intros, where the song loosely connects to the themes in the show, as indirect or direct as it may be. Okay, take back that lyric comment I just made, actually. This is a bit of post-production here. Gonna be honest, I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics in the video itself, but then I translated the lyrics by looking online, and it turns out the lyrics actually match up really well with the series. I just overgeneralized because a lot of other series I see have the song not really connect, but Black Blood Brothers connects really well. Things like Colored Red and Black, Reaching Out to Memories of Tomorrow, like obviously the name of the title, and Reaching Out to the Moon. So I will say the lyrics this time around reach they fit really well. So sorry if I made that comment or that overgeneralized bit just a little bit vague. But let's get back to the intro now. I'm going to slow the footage down here a little bit. Sorry if it's a bit jarring. You probably noticed I speed up or slow down my footage, but I'm doing this so I can, show off things a little bit clearer. Memories of Tomorrow is by far my favorite intro we've covered thus far. It has the most favorable animation, and while yes, High School DxD Season 1 had more resources and obviously a team to work on it because, well, High School DxD Season 1 came out later, it's not a major focus for me anyways. Don't get me wrong, High School DxD Season 1 has a really good intro, but that's a harem anime, folks. The intro is not going to be the most complicated, and it's more often than not going to be eye-candy. Anyways, back on Memories of Tomorrow. It shows most of the main characters, the protags, the plot crucial sides, and even the 3 major antagonists. It might sound disappointing to spoil all 3 villains' appearances, but I'm going to take it here with the series only being 12 episodes, something that the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter can't say for its character design spoiling in the intro of the 50-ish episodes of that arc, so it's much better here. I love the choice of slower scenes of characters standing in the wind, walking, or looking just plain cool. We do have a few pretty good motion shots for more action impact bits when the rock guitar kicks in, and they look really good as well. The lighting is creative. I especially like the shot where it pans up to show the 3 biggest faction heads with the shadows covering their faces, then showing their eyes. I also appreciate how the location is a place that actually appears in the anime, unlike Twilight Venom in WATV, which had a winged creature attack Cheyenne by a rocky lake, and that never happened in the anime. The camera angles here are really creative with the moon in the opening and Jiro on the rooftops. The fading teleport animation normally might look lazy in any other anime, but it works actually rather well for Black Blood Brothers context. I also appreciated showing not all of the characters, but they do show a bit about their defining personality traits and or powers. For instance, we can see characters like Jiro being able to gravitate or walk on walls, Yafuri being an adept sword user, or how they show the main villain Kasa with a crucifix chain she attacks with. I really love this intro, as you can see. The intro also has subtle little details, as I've pointed out in several animes like Hellsing or Chrono Crusade. There are some little details. While not nearly as apparent or nearly as many little details, I do like how there are a few. Like, for instance, we see some personality/character traits, like Kane Warlock has quite a temper and a brief shot of his rage mode. They also show Sei, while having the appearance of a child, has some kind of other big superpower. And Zaza, while not directly showing his power, they do show he acts more as a support villain with his computer glasses glowing at the computer, or how he's a confident driver. And all in all, this is a really good intro, one of my favorites thus far. Are there any problems with it? Yeah, I do have one. It really is just a minimal nitpick, which really isn't a big problem. It's just me overanalyzing because I'm a big stickler, and I'll just say what it is. My only small, minor nitpick that brings this down from OMG, this is perfect to OMG, this is nearly perfect is the very last shot. It's a standstill of all 3 of the main characters. It's by no means a major complaint, and, other series have done something like this, but I would have loved maybe just a little bit more, and they hold on that frame of the standstill photo for a little bit longer than I like, but other than that, it's my only nitpick, and it really is not that big of a problem if other series done elsewhere. I just would have liked a little bit more, but that's more of a confident than a complaint than anything, so I really like this. And as I said in some of my previous reviews, start with a good intro like this, and you have me invested for a potentially fun series. So, with the overly long intro finally finished, let's talk about the characters. Since, as I previously stated in my biased memory gap comment earlier, I had felt the mains were good, and my lack of major moments for the side characters made me assume, well, if I didn't remember, it must have been because they weren't good or something. Will my thoughts change, though, upon reanalyzing them? Let's find out.
Brother did that earlier. He doesn't get modern appliances, so he couldn't figure out how to turn it off.
I'm massively late.
Alrighty, let's talk about those characters. I'm sorry once again to reference WATV with this remark, but you may notice I'm wearing a different shirt, and that's actually because I've been spending a long time recording my review of Black Blood Brothers. I'm not even kidding when I say my script was like 63 pages long. I have surprisingly a lot to say about this 12 episode series, mainly due to the fact that I forgot a lot about it, and I wanted to talk a lot about it given the fact that I didn't have a lot to talk about before scripting it, and obviously before watching it. But yeah, I had a lot of jokes written in, and a few of them I've been skimming over. Like, for instance, I did mention before I have a maid kitty uniform, but I've decided, to kind of trim out a few of those jokes just to make this review a little bit more professional, because not all of my reviews should have giant jokes in them, but I'm sure the jokes do entertain y'all. So, all things considered, Ooh, a maid kitty uniform? Gee, I wonder what the context of that joke in the script was, Quint. Like, these scripting jokes. Stop blabbing, Buster! Let's start with the main characters. I'm going to start with the least notable versus most noticeable. Starting with Alice Eve. She is naturally the romantic interest of our main protagonist, though she is dead and doesn't really do much apart from serve as the main protagonist's way into the vampire life, as well as, well, being, his motivation. So nothing too much to comment there. Then we have Mimiko, the gal who works as a compromiser between vampires and humans in the Special Zone City, and she works for the Order Coffin Company, or as they simply call it, the Company. She acts as a decent source of comic relief and as a good voice of reason to Jiro and Kotaru, the other two protagonists, and she does have story significance, meeting with the main villain later on, though her first bit of screen time is actually at the very end of the first episode. Next is the very cute, flamboyant, and kind of femboyish, literally, Kotaru. I already showed him in the Wake Up Brother scene, and he's really cute, and I used to think he was really annoying, but I kinda latched onto him, seeing he kinda was like me way back when with me and my older brother Scott. And when I say he's almost literally femboyish, I mean that literally, since he's the reincarnation of Alice Eve. Next up is the main character, the ever badass Jiro Mochizuki, older brother of Kotaru Mochizuki, hence the name Black Blood Brothers, because, well, they're brothers and they're both Black Bloods, which is what the humans call vampires. The humans are called Red Bloods, the vampires are called Black Bloods, in case you didn't really know that already, but I think it goes without saying. Jiro obviously has a vendetta against Casa for betraying the vampires, joining the Kulan children, as well as killing his romantic interest Alice Eve, forcing her into the state of Kotaru. Something I really like about Jiro is actually the water weakness. I don't mean like holy water, just general weakness to water, sea water, rain. It's a part of the vampire lore I thought that was forgotten, so good on you. Next up is Sei, who is one of the leaders of the Special Zone. He's pretty cool. He has the power to turn into a giant freaking dragon, and he has a right-hand man named Zhanghua, who's pretty cool. Then we have Kane Warlock, who I didn't really like at first, but then he kind of grew on me as time went on, and he's kind of badass. I mean, sure, he's kind of a grouch and a bit of a grumpy old man, but when you start to realize why, being because he was on the house that Casa, the main villain, betrayed, you can see why he'd be very skeptical, and by that token, very, very grouchy. His power to turn into a blue wolf is also there for all the furries, so that's cool. Badrick is his right-hand man working for the suppression team. The third major leader is Zelman Clock, who is a fan favorite. I mean, he's pretty cool. I mean, the dude is actually, technically speaking, a criminal, but he does have a lot of honor, and he slowly starts to fall into the traditions of the Special Zone, and his ability, Eye Ignites, is quite a monumentous asset, since we know how weak vampires are to fire, so having a vampire that can use fire is pretty beneficial to his faction, believe it or not, and he's really cool. His right-hand woman, Sayuka, acts as a good voice of reason, and she does have a bit of a crush on him, though it's not too deeply went into, since the side characters aren't all that big. Mitaki is the leader of the Special Zone, and I have nothing more to comment on. Hibari is Mimiko's junior, and similar to Kotaru and naturally Mimiko herself, she's pretty funny, being kind of that try-hard worker who tries to follow in the footsteps of her superior Mimiko, though she is pretty cute, and she does have story significance, seeing an information broker. She's similar to Mimiko as a compromiser, but little does she know the information broker is actually one of the main villains who we'll get into later. Rinsuke is kind of a flamboyant investigator who's a pretty interesting character. Janai is the boss of Mimiko and Hibari, though he looks a little too similar to Mitaki. Kelly Wong was part of a group of broken line vampires who were trying to get into the special zone, but were hunted by the suppression team because one of them was supposedly a Kulon children. Her child, Chan, is a vampire similar to all the others, and she acts as a really good buddy, cute little source of, fan service, and even just some wholesome fun for, well, Kotaru, naturally. And the fan service is more vampiric than sexy, so I just want to point that out. But the series does have fan service, but thankfully Chan's is more of the cute fan service. But it gets a bit deeper when going on. The other characters in the past, like Crow or the Dark Princess North, are cool side characters too. Now let's talk about the villains. The basic monsters/minions of the week are the Kulon children, but that goes without saying. The first of the major villains is Johan Sang, who was the Kulon child amongst Kelly Wong's group, and Jiro quickly puts him down. Not too complicated, but works. Next up is August Weichner, who is the right hand of Zelma. However, he got bit turning into a Kulon child, and he goes insane. So much so as he tries to bring an anti-tank rifle to fight Jiro. I mean, jeez, an anti-tank rifle when fighting a vampire. Quite the arms, if I may say so myself. Now, of course, it's not nearly as wild as Wild Arms. I'm sorry, I had to make that joke, but whatever. August has 3 different fights, and much like Johan, the fights kind of show a different end of the spectrum on the combat. Now for the 3 main villains, starting with Zaza, who is the information broker Hibari received. He's pretty wise and pretty witty, kind of acting as, again, another voice of reason amongst the villains. However, his interesting power is he can literally possess other bodies, thus earning him the title Walkerman. He possesses other bodies, whether they be human, and that's how the main villains got into the special zone, with Walkerman/Zaza's unique ability to possess others. He doesn't do all that much fighting, but he does play a pivotal role as the support for, well, the main villains, naturally. And even if he doesn't do that much fighting, he does know how to defend himself when need be, and his impalement at the very end is a satisfying death. Now for Yao Furi Chao. Okay, let me say right now, I used to hate this brat with a burning passion. I mean, seriously, look at his face. This just screams hateable. However, upon rewatching the series, he actually became my favorite of the villains. They make him hateable, but you do understand why. I mean, with Yao Furi being a character that was extremely labeled, being a personal descendant of the Kulon King, effectively making him the Kulon Prince, you understand why he would want to go out of way to prove his worth, when he has an older brother Zaza and an older sister Casa constantly teasing him and making fun of him. So you understand why he'd want to go out of his way to fight and prove himself worthy. Now, does that make him any more or less hateable? No, he's still just as hateable, but you get why when he's surrounded by all these people saying he's this and he's that, when really he just wants to be his own unique person. And similarly to Zaza, his death is pretty damn satisfying. Now for the main villain, Cassandra Jill Worthy, the tormentor and sadomasochistic, well, memory of Jiro's dark past. She's pretty damn seductive and hateable like all the other villains, though you do kind of see she gets way too into this. I mean, she gets off on the idea of annoying the crap out of Jiro, which is basically her whole motivation and why she became a Kulon child, to literally just get inside of people's heads, and this makes her quite the hateable villain. The final fight with her is really good too, and I naturally think she works really well as a final villain. I used to hate her guts, but then again, she's the main villain, so why would you not hate her guts? And of course, naturally, there is fan service with Casa. I mean, seriously, look at this scene here when Zaza's off possessing another body, and she even offers Mimiko the chance to draw on his unconscious face with permanent marker. Like, jeez, what a bitch! But that makes her all the more hateable and makes her defeat all the more satisfying. Whether or not Casa is alive or dead is really up to interpretation, But I do think she is dead, and the whole "I had fun" Jiro message at the end was more of just her last words to poke more fun at Jiro before she passed on to the spirit world. All in all, Black Blood Brothers is a pretty good cast, all things considered. It's by no means my favorite cast in the Anime Memories retrospective thus far, and I still do have a few problems with the characters. Mainly the fact that with this series only being 12 episodes, the characters themselves, upon first glance, are really, really simple. I mean, of course, they're not going to have major complications with this being a short series. However, I do like it for those who want more complexity. You can overanalyze like me, and you'll start to see a little bit more. It doesn't change the fact that for those who want things complicated, you're gonna have to do a bit of work and really, really read too deep into it. Yet, I will say though, for what we got, the characters, as simple or deep or even lighthearted, or even just the characters that don't serve much purpose, I can say that they, at the very least, are entertaining, they're well voice acted, and most importantly, they move to push the story along. No character felt outright pointless per se. I mean, some obviously served more or less purpose than others, but I will say that the voice actors all around were really good. The characters, the way they're drawn are nice, the personalities are unique, and they definitely stand out to me. I mean, that's kind of why the hateable characters I used to hate so much with a burning passion, because, well, they stood out to me. But originally, I thought that was a bad thing as a kid, but specifically in the case of the villains, they're made to be that way. And me saying they're bad because they're hateable is a blatant contradiction because, well, that's how they're written. Now, of course, there are times where hateability, can be written the wrong way. I mean, look at how I felt about Jadeite in Sailor Moon Season 1. Seriously, why the frick did Jadeite go on the whole discrimination speech? All for the lame excuse of having the Sailor Scouts talk him down. I mean, legit people. That fight would have been really good if they didn't do that as the big climax of that fight, but this isn't a review about Sailor Moon. I'm talking about Black Blood Brothers, or B3 for short, as I said before. Again, the characters aren't too complex when watching the series itself, but for those who want to analyze and look a bit deeper like me, you might be surprised, and you'll find it a bit of a brainstorm, honestly. There's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of analyzing, and even if the characters don't directly say it, the anime really doesn't need to say it in order for you to see what they're trying to convey. And you know what? That's pretty good, all things considered.
All my life I've been surrounded by death! I eat to live, and I kill to eat! That's the life of a Kulon child.
New shirt! Yay! I'm not going to comment on this too much. Okay. Anyways, something I have frequently brought up in the world segment, heck, even as early as my very first review, is the amount of variety. I might make it seem like variety is what I look for in a world, but it really doesn't need to be massive. It doesn't even need to be all that big. I mean, there are series that do Japanese towns right, and you know what? Black Blood Brothers is one of them. I'm actually really surprised I'm saying that with the Japanese towns that haven't really hit or miss. I think the only, quotation marks, good Japanese town we've covered is Juban from Sailor Moon, ironically. Now, maybe there was another one I covered, but I don't really care to go through all the other reviews I've done thus far. Though I will say, though, the world this time around is the Special Zone. Now, okay, I know to be fair, this series doesn't take place in the Special Zone all the time, but the Special Zone is the focus location for 8 of the 12 episodes, so the series mainly takes place in the Special Zone. And you might be surprised to hear this, but I actually think the Special Zone is better than Fall Gaia. Not better than 1928 America from Chrono Crusade. 1928 America from Chrono Crusade is obviously better, but I'm actually pleasantly surprised and honestly happy to admit the Special Zone is better than Fall Gaia from WATV.
Oh? Bringing up Fall Gaia in the world section again, I see. Why on earth do you keep bringing up Wild Arm's Twilight Venom anyways, Quint?
Gene, Fall Gaia was a really good world. He keeps revitalizing. It seems like the battle with Gene will be eternal. Quick, grab the lightsaber.
1 week later.
Jeez, I'm gonna be spending like half of my life trying to fight Gene just to get him away for 2 seconds in my videos at this rate. Anyways, yes, the Special Zone is a really good world. And as I said before, being diverse and having a lot of options doesn't automatically make for a good world. But what does make for a really good world is the lore and the mythos. I know you're probably sick of me going back to WATV for the world segment, but really, people, that comes with it being the very first review I did, as well as it being something I can compare easily to, in addition to the fact that Fall Gaia was a really, really good world. It just goes without saying, I'm going to be comparing Fall Gaia a lot, with it being one of my earliest reviews, as well as it, well, naturally being a pretty high quality world. I mean, it wasn't always a desert, there are things like, the train, the ship with Rotes and Kojima. And while I may have been overrating the episode a little bit for the really good twist at the end with the whole gay dynamic between the two, I'll say even though the episode may be boring to some with it being an art, thing on a ship, I can at least say I remembered it more. It was more memorable and it did something new that I was like, hey, that's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not really complex, and the episode is pretty slow, but it did feel worth it to pull off by the end, in addition to the little details tying in, and the locations all around were really good, even including Honest Town, as stupid as that location is. And even in episodes I absolutely despised, like episode 6, Someday My Robber Will Come, or God forbid, episode 14, Interview with the Empire, at the very least, the locations in those episodes were interesting. I mean, the shrine with Elizabeth and Kiel did not save the whole weird romantic dynamic. And while I definitely think them reusing the whole awkward romance for episode 14, I can at least say it was nice to see Mirabelle's village, in addition to more of the lifestyle of the Noble Reds, which was nice, all things considered. And even episodes that didn't retain the deserty feel, like, say, on episode 17, on the orphanage and Dr. Clark's farm, it didn't feel too out of the ordinary, with not all of Fall Gaia being a desert. I mean, Fall Gaia is a planet, so obviously it's not going to be all desert. But even the scenes that were really good, like episode 18, Days of the Bacchus, my personal favorite episode, had really good stuff, like the statue of Keanu and Lila, and all the great character moments, voting up Lila, and I'm just beating a dead horse at this rate. I need to tie this back into the Special Zone, though, and naturally Black Blood Brothers. What makes a world like this that's so diverse, has so many options, is really, really, just out there, but also fitting? What makes the Special Zone better than this? Well, let's start first and foremost with the theming. You see, WATV never really had a consistent theme. Sure, it was mostly a sci-fi western, however, there were a lot of times where it leaned away from that. During the romantic episodes, or even during some of the more funny episodes. Kind of like Cowboy Bebop, WATV didn't really have a single specific genre. Now, of course, similar to Bebop, you can't really complain because, well, with it being such an awkward, weird, out there world, I guess it fits, and the world is only enhanced by there being no one true genre. But it didn't change the fact that lore-wise, it would be really, really hard to tie it all together. Now, don't get me wrong, there was some really interesting lore. I found the whole, backstory of the goddess and the evil race really, really endearing, and the whole thing being a government, lie to masquerade the fact that Lila and Keanu, the leaders of the humans and the emulated human mutants on Fall Gaia, their love story and their war. I found this a really, really interesting idea, and it made for a surprisingly deep lore on a series that, for the most part, didn't take itself too seriously, and even when it did, it felt fitting.
However, the problem was the lore really did not build around itself that well. Sure, it probably was built in the fact with this in mind, but it didn't change the fact the way it was portrayed was so rushed. And really, I think the biggest problem with WATV is that the series simply didn't use its screen time all that well. I mean, a filler first half versus a story-driven second half is, well, something other series have done, and they've done quite well, mind you. The problem is, WTV took way too much time focusing on sillier filler episodes rather than developing the main plot and the stuff that was actually good. I wanted to see more of Lila. I want to see more of Keanu. I want to see the villains in the government. Like, heck, even Valeria and Sabrisky. I wanted to see more of that. I didn't want to see, Kiel get roped into an awkward romance with Elizabeth. I didn't want to see Mirabelle get into an awkward romance with the Empire. I wanted to see more about the world of Falgaia. I wanted to see what caused Keanu and Lila to fight. And while, yes, we do know this stuff now, it's so confusing. Like, they have half of the final fight. Like, in the fight with Keanu and Cheyenne, half that episode is just a giant lore dump from Falgaia possessing Jerusha and Kiel at the computer. And once again, I am so sorry to rant about this, but why the frick was Lila not the final boss? We had Lila built up as early as episode 4. She was the masked woman who gave the associate director Useless the holy oil, or scientific oil, to wake up the burned body creature and destroy the Faluna Bible. And while, yes, we don't know for sure if that was Lila or not, I think it's pretty obvious given the fact she had the mask and the lipstick. Then in episode 11 and 12, we see Lila meet Cheyenne, but it was just a clone, much like the bodies that the gene driver experiments tested by the government and Roof were going on. Her body gets killed, and the real Lila is actually, a woman named Gina Angel, who does look like Lila, and that's because she's the reincarnation of her, but she had programmed memories stuffed into her head in addition to the experiments to make her think she's the goddess, having her change from her goddess personality and goddess memories making her more dominant to a more soft and compassionate human, that being Gina Angel. Valeria using her to get political influence and get elected, Sabrisky trying to play along with this to reveal the truth and the whole thing is a lie. Again, there was a lot of stuff here. There was a lot of really interesting lore. And while, yes, the world does complement the fact that with it being really out there and really spread out, it doesn't feel too out of the ordinary, but it did make for a very well-written story when the anime took several occasions to waste time with filler episodes. While some were entertaining, others were really inconsistent, and it prevented the anime from building off of the stuff that was good. Like, for instance, why the frick do you not give Lila the final fight? You give her this huge weapon in episode 16, you give her the great statue scene in episode 18, but then you give Keanu the final fight, which makes sense, he's the evil king, but then he kills himself, and okay, don't get me wrong, I love the Keanu and Cheyenne fight. It's easily the best fight in WATV, but it felt more like a build-up to a second half, which it tried to do. I mean, we had Keanu and Cheyenne fight. Lila interrupts the fight to dump the truth on Keanu. Keanu and Valeria are there to support her facts. Keanu, in the midst of it all, not believing it, decides to kill himself to prove a point. Isaac, Jerusha, Mirabelle, and Loretta are all there to support Shine as well, but the body is destroyed. And it feels like they're going to make Lila go insane, like at the very end where she falls off after Keanu shoots himself. But instead, you give that honor to Lucia, the blue wolf creature. And okay, I know what you're thinking. Well, they would just give Lucia the fight, right? And that would make a ton of sense if they gave Lucia the final fight. I mean, I'd be fine if they didn't give Lila the fight, if they did it in favor of Lucia, since Lucia seemed really pointless. But no, Lucia doesn't even get that. Instead, Lucia just tries, to take Lila away. But no, since Lucia can't drain the energy of desire from everyone in Falgaia, he decides to destroy it, and instead of giving us a fight with Lucia, or a fight with Lila, or even better, a fight with Lucia possessing Lila, you instead go for a really tact finale with Cheyenne saying he loves Lila, even though he's not Keanu, and all this confusing lore that really made the finale not that good. You then go out of your way to have a really, really bittersweet ending of Cheyenne, while yes, emotionally defeating the system that caused Twilight Venom, in addition to the base on Earth, Faluna, which was the name of the base on Earth, by the way. He blasts it with all three arms and supposedly burns up in the atmosphere, but then it's revealed through a really, really confusing turn of events that you really have to overanalyze to see that Sybil's angel, back in episode 15, had managed to save Cheyenne before he burned up, and then years later he appears before Gina Angel, who's free from Lila's influence, and they all live happily ever after. But then you remember that the other characters like Kiel, Isaac, Jerusha, Loretta, and Mirabel don't really do anything, and the very end has Isaac and Jerusha get remarried, but then Jerusha bitch slaps him and doesn't even attend, and it feels really, really incomplete. I mean, okay, it's a great ending for Cheyenne and Lila. I don't deny that. I think this is a great ending for Cheyenne and Lila. But why the frick do you shaft every other character? And even then, you should have given Lila and Luciad a fight. But you didn't give either one of them that. So what the actual frick? And that's my point of why I say, in my opinion, the Special Zone in Black Blood Brothers is better than Fall Gaia in WATV. The lore actually works really, really well, unlike WATV and the inconsistent mess that went on there. I mean, I don't know if this warrants me repeating, but WATV was held down by having a really, really good world with a massively interesting and deep to read lore, but it didn't tie in too well to the story. That's not a problem with the world, that's a problem with the story of WATV. But the world set such a high bar that the story could not live up to. But Black Blood Brothers, they had to balance a lot better, and the Special Zone is, to this day, from what I've seen, I don't know if I'll see any better Japanese towns. I probably might, but the Special Zone is quite the interesting Japanese town, in my opinion. Alrighty then. Let's cover those things I kind of mentioned at the start, but put off until now. First and foremost of my major points. Every episode starts out with a flashback sequence that goes back to the Kulon Shock, a major event that plays into the story of several characters. You might be wondering why I'm talking about this now rather than the story section, but I do it here because the story segment is going to be kind of dragged out anyways, and these flashbacks really build the world more than anything, so I think that warrants it being in the world section. These flashbacks show things like Alice Eve meeting Jiro Mochizuki, Kotaro before he and Jiro go north inside the Special Zone, and it sounds like it would drag out the first few minutes of every episode, but they thankfully made it short yet significant. I've heard a few complain that the flashbacks being out of order makes it confusing and hard to track which flashback means what, and the specific time/place in the chronology or mythos it goes in. However, I argue against that since this series is 12 episodes short anyways, and the rest of the story is very linear. Furthermore, I think the flashbacks they picked were actually well decided for the theming of the episode. Some of the faster flashbacks, like the one with Alice and Jiro meeting on the running carriage, being a faster flashback, worked well in a slower episode that didn't have a lot of identity, or how the very last episode has a lot of action, yet the flashback is just of Alice and Jiro ordering a bear at a store, and it's a lot more subtle and calm to contrast the final battle going. I think it worked quite well, and with most of the story being very, very linear, downright to the point of there being no filler episodes, I think it's honestly fine the flashbacks are out of order, since it gives a bit more complexity and a bit more, well, off-track bits to analyze compared to the rest of the story, which, as I said before, is pretty straightforward. Something I greatly appreciate about the world is how the vampires fit within it. Something Glass Reflection said in his Helsing Ultimate review has, well, vampires kind of blend in, almost to the point you spin a roulette, as he puts it. Will the vampires be solely creatures with no honor? Do they have sub-branches or different, ties in the race? Are vampires made by bites? Are they someone with rituals, darkness? What weaknesses, strengths, romance, horror, that kind of thing. I find this portrayal of vampires the most unique I've actually ever seen. Legit, I've said before that vampires were treated more like another race in the world, similar to dwarves, elves, orcs, stuff like that, in something like Lord of the Rings or Skyrim or D&D. They're more like another race. Heck, even kind of like Mirabelle as a noble red in WATV. There I go, bringing it up again. However, I find the politics of the vampires and the humans very intriguing, and keep in mind, I almost never enjoy involving politics in my videos because, let's be real here, the world is so sensitive. I mean, I heavily hesitated the urge or dodged around potentially sensitive topics in Chrono Crusade. I mean, Chrono Crusade is a brilliant anime, but the religious themes to some might rub people the wrong way, since we know how stubborn people are. I mean, look at all the Karens out there. This world also has other means to help vampires fit in with the humans, mainly the Special Zone city itself, contained by a massive barrier, and the Order Coffin Company, which Mimiko works for. So the humans and vampires want to coexist, down to the humans calling themselves Red Bloods and the vampires being addressed as Black Bloods to show equality and fairness. Anyways, now for my next point. Most of the anime takes place in the previously mentioned Special Zone City, but that's not the only location. I mean, the Kulon Shock was in Hong Kong, and the first 4 episodes are about the group getting in the Special Zone. However, episodes beyond that are contained in the Special Zone, so it is effectively the focused location, and the Special Zone is even located in Japan. However, unlike other Japanese towns, like in the one during Elfen Lied, DxD Season 1, or Tomoeda and CCS, I find the Special Zone to be the most interesting Japanese town. It's better than Juban, with it being built in the city. However, it's out in the water with a bridge as its main method of entrance, and it makes it feel different enough from the outside while having familiar stuff on the inside, like skyscrapers, apartments, and boat markets, and city streets, stores, that kind of thing. Heck, Kotaru in a really cute scene calls Mimiko's apartment kind of like a secret hideout, which is really cute. The Coven Mansion is, exquisite and royal feeling. The villain's hideout is really run down and rustic. I mean, they really put a lot of charm in this world, and I'm actually really surprised how political it feels. And I'm not the only one who thinks this, actually.
It's kind of divided between the different classes of vampires, and it's very political, so it really makes you feel like there's this long history, and there's
Special shout out to this guy, by the way. I am so sorry, I don't know your name, and I don't remember the exact YouTube channel title either, but I will say though, of all the Black Blood Brothers reviews, yours definitely had the most points that rung true with me, and I do agree with them for the most part, in addition to your reviews not being as long as mine. So, credit to you, buddy. Also, I hope to see more videos in the future.
I will say that his brother is really annoying. I did not like his brother, especially with the English dub, which is how I watched this show. He kind of had some of that honey senpai going on from Ouran High School Host Club.
No, I take that back. Kotaru's adorable. What do you mean he's annoying? He's not annoying. I used to think he was really annoying.
What are you doing here, August?
An acquaintance of yours?
No way!
The visuals. This is a section across many different videos I've always had trouble with. I've said on several occasions, I am not an animation expert. I really am not. Now, just because I've tried to animate PowerPoint things, doesn't mean they were good. But, Time for yet another history lesson. On most of my reviews, I've had kind of a iffy representation when it comes to the visual section in my videos, in my opinion. I mean, in my WATV review, I didn't even tap on the visuals at all. There was no visual section. Same thing in Trigun, where I kind of had mashed my remarks about the animation in the world section when talking about the desolate, deserty feel, but it was really lamely played. In Cardcaptor Sakura, I had talked about the animation there, but I was really general and didn't point out many specifics. Then in other videos like Sailor Moon, I talked about how the animation shouldn't be compared to stuff later on. And by the time I reached something like Hellsing, Berserk, Elfen Lied, and well, Chrono Crusade especially, I finally started to get into the flow and became more confident with myself in explaining and examining the animation and just the visuals in general. And Black Blood Brothers has some surprisingly good results, all things considered. I don't want to talk about just how good or bad it is, or about the fluid motion shots, or whatever stuff I normally talk about. But I do have some things to talk about in this visual section that isn't just the animation, or how good the action scenes are, how fast or slow some scenes are. I have a pretty interesting thing I want to point out right here. How something looks is a big factor to drawing in an audience. You want your series to have a special visual feel to differentiate it from the other series, while also not feeling too foreign to newcomers. Black Blood Brothers, as I stated in the intro in the world section, has great backgrounds with clever lighting, unique camera angles, and fairly consistent motion, save for the still frame picture during the intro. These compliments mostly carry over to the show itself as well, and I'm quite glad. Some series do this thing where the show itself isn't very consistent with the animation styling or movement in the intro, so I'm glad it doesn't falsely advertise. The motion shots, as I've stated before, are something I usually bring up in this section, but I want to talk about something else before we cover that, namely the character designs. Remember how I would constantly, and I mean constantly, bring up the fact that Dr. Keel Aranax from Wild Arms Twilight Venom, there I go, mentioning that series once again, but I'm sorry. The character design of Dr. Keel Aranax was a 7-foot muscular doctor with an eye guard and a blade shield. I mean, really, people. This character design didn't really complement the fact he was a doctor. It also didn't tie into very well his personality, since he looked just a little too beefy to be this soft. And keep in mind that blade shield he has, he rarely uses. And now, if they tied this into the fact that he's a doctor and he doesn't believe doctors should fight and he only used out of defense, I think that'd be a cool character trait, but the series doesn't really portray Keel that way since he barely gets any screen time and Keel's pretty quiet, so we won't know. That's kind of my problem with Keel Aranax, was that he had a really good idea, but any major character traits were really up to interpretation. All we really know is that he's a scientist, he was sent to prison by Sibursky, has a blade shield that he can use, but really chooses not to use it. However, I feel like the character designs here in Black Blood Brothers are really, really good, and they fit with the characters. In the flashbacks, we saw Jiro was quite the elegant and well-kept person, shown to his more calmer nature back then before becoming a vampire. However, during the Kulon shock, he is quite more depressed, and the desert cloak and raggedy feel really suits him, while current day, he seems to have gained some of his composure and his more well-kept nature, but still has that sword at the side to symbolize, well, his will to fight. Kotaru is adorable as he should and has similar goggles to his brother. Zelman Clock stands out a ton from the other members of the Coven. I mean, remember, this dude is 800 years old, yet he tries to look young, almost like a skater dude. It's kind of funny that it's clear he's just trying to have fun. Despite the rest of the Coven looking more noble, it's clear, Zelman Clock is more of just a rad dude. Kane is more upkept and elegant, and fits well with his more serious nature. And heck, the character designs fitting in with the, personalities even applies to Yalfrey, Sure, Yalfrey might look stupid with a blatantly noticeable yellow hoodie, eye tattoos, bushy eyebrows, a sheath on his back, and slicked back brown hair, which is not subtle for the stealth missions at all, but this fits given his desire to stand out and be his own person. So it's a nice touch. Casa naturally goes for that seductive, kind of dominatrix-like uniform, which really fits with her sadomasochistic nature and how she really, even quote for quote, says fighting Jiro makes her feel tingly. I mean, the physical designs of August and the Coven look really noble and elegant, but really ties well with their power-hungry and pompous natures. I mean, they tried to threaten Jiro by demanding he join them at gunpoint. So the whole noble coats fit really well. I mean, these character designs, as odd as some can be, really do parallel the characters' actions and personalities, as direct or subtle as it gets. This is something I hadn't really gone into major detail in other reviews, mainly because I didn't even think about it. However, it gave me a lot more to think about and talk in future videos, hopefully. Now let's cover the animation. Movement-wise, this series is pretty good actually. The slower scenes of the walking around or going from one place to another aren't just standstills, and most of the time have some minimal details to keep things interesting, though the anime really is all about that action, and it is quite good. However, the series isn't all action. I mean, you can't really just have a series that's all action, but Black Blood Brothers has quite a lot of it, and the fewer slice of life scenes, slower scenes, or even some of the funnier scenes are well animated enough and still entertaining from a visual perspective. I mean, the characters themselves are great, they don't feel too outfitting or cliche, nor do they feel redundantly complex with this series being short, so them being simple upon watching, but obviously more complicated upon further examining, is a pretty good strength this anime has, and I think the animation all around is really good. I mean, not all the animation shines during the action scenes, but the action scenes are most notably where you see the animators and visuals put to the ultimate test. And for the most part, it's pretty good movement-wise. However, there are some moments. Not bad, just some stuff I noticed when rewatching, since the fight scenes really are the major highlight anyways. Here's an example to describe what I mean. You see, during the fight with Kane and Yalfrey, this shot of Kane running looks really weird to me. It looks like he's lugging his weight while chasing like, huh, huh. But if you look closely, the individual frames are actually perfectly fine. What really makes it weird is that when they mash them together, it makes it look like Kane is lugging his weight, because it's going so fast. But the frames themselves are really detailed. See, not bad, just a little weird. However, I get it they were trying to mash it with Yalfrey running, which looked fine beforehand, mind you. So, honestly, I can overlook this, but it is still weird when looking at it. However, at the end of the day, Black Blood Brothers has some really good animation, and apart from those few nuances here and there with those moments, it's quite good. And even during the fight scenes, they have equally good animation to cancel out those moments. Especially during the last fight. Like, holy crap, there is some great animation here, folks. I mean, damn. However, another thing Black Blood Brothers got right is, surprise, I'm actually happy I tackled Berserk 2016 before this CGI. Now, normally CGI would scare any animation stickler. I mean, it's just really not that easy to pull off. However, Black Blood Brothers got it right. The only 3 times I can think of where CG animation was used was the coffin entrance Jiro had in episode 1. The helicopters are CGI as well, but that's fine since the vehicle CGI looks fine in episodes of other animes like number 23 of Death Note during Higuchi's road chase. And the third and final example isn't in the episodes themselves, but during the previews of the water, which doesn't hurt the anime, so I'm fine, and yeah, the CGI wasn't too bad, and that's actually quite a relief. I mean, that's certainly more than I can say for Mare Heaven and its stiff-ass CGI. I mean, seriously, look at these summons. They are quite jagged, and the movement for them is not good. And that's something even the final battle of Mare Heaven is guilty of. I mean, I still like Mare Heaven, but the CGI It's quite the... Ugh.
Worthy opponent, my ass! I will not play games with you!
It's no game, Silverblade. I've heard stories about you my entire life. I know how you fight. I know everything about you.
Similarly to other series we reviewed that were fairly short, you'd naturally and understandably assume Black Blood Brothers would have a really short soundtrack, right? No. Surprisingly, they put in a lot of effort for Black Blood Brothers soundtrack. I mean, 12-episode animes don't exactly need to have the most complex or deep soundtracks. However, it really does enhance the experience to have good music. Or at the very least, if you can't have just like banging tracks, have a lot of just good tracks to choose from. And Black Blood Brothers did that and more. I mean, series like Elephant Lead were obviously held down by the soundtrack being really small, as well as the music being atmospheric for sure, but not used all that much in the anime because it more used silence. And something like Berserk's 1997 anime had really, really good music, but it was held down by the fact that the series only had like 15 tracks for 25 episodes. Now, good examples we've covered in the retrospective, which had like a short series with really good music, would go to something like Hellsing Classic or Devil May Cry, the animated series, which had 30 or 20ish tracks for their 12 or 13 episodes. So that's good. We've had stuff like that. But Black Blood Brothers really went above and beyond, giving us 46 tracks for just 12 episodes, and they're all pretty darn good. I have already hammered the fact that I haven't seen many animes with outright bad soundtracks, but how do I feel about this soundtrack compared to the others? Well, as great and as diverse as it is, it's not quite as good as some of the others we've encountered in the retrospective. I actually much prefer WATV soundtrack over Black Blood Brothers. You may even notice I've been using a bit of WATV music in my videos, in addition to the stuff I'm already using from WATV. But don't let that get to your head. I still really like this soundtrack. It's got some really good stuff. I guess I just wanted to see more of it used because the series is so short. But all things considered, I'd listen to it here and there, so that's good.
Wasn't the smartest move using your body as a shield. You're still far too erratic. Silverblade, my boy.
B3 is probably the most straightforward story we've covered yet in this retrospective. It tells a flashback at the start of every episode after the intro and before the title card. These are good for those who want to know more about the past lore, but aren't necessarily required for those who want to skip and enjoy the here and now. The story is split into what I argue a 3-story act that always stays on track. I've mentioned before there is absolutely zero filler episodes by that token as well. Act 1 is the process of the brothers getting into the special zone, ending with the fight between Jiro and Sang. Act 2 is them fitting into the special zone as well, and doing a bit of investigating with a few fights like the ones with Auguste, and ending on Yao 3 briefly dueling with Jiro. Finally, Act 3 is where Kotaru runs off and Jiro has to find him in addition to saving the Special Zone from Casa, Zaza, and Yalfuri's master plan. Most of the episodes ended on an open note. Not exactly a cliffhanger per se, but it leaves loose questions and things to encourage the viewers to tune into the next episode and complete the series. It's a very linear plot, and as I said before, with it being so straightforward, it's likely the simplest story we've covered thus far. However, I rather like that, honestly. I've said in other reviews, being simple doesn't mean bad. You just have to make it entertaining, and, well, surprise surprise, Black Blood Brothers is very entertaining. With this being a 12-episode series, it makes sense for it to not be overly complicated, so I'm glad it kept the story accessible and fairly easy to understand for the most part. There will be a few moments where you might question stuff, but at the end, most of it gets wrapped up. Now let's go on to the episodes. Episode 1, Black Blood Brothers. Yeah, very creative, just reusing the name of the title. I'm sorry. The flashback we get here is the longest one, and understandably so, as it is the most important, and they want to open it on a more action-based note. We get a surprisingly decent intro fight with Jiro talking with the old Sei and a younger Kane. Zellman is watching the news from the side, but he's not as prominent in this flashback. The flashback concludes after a brief but well-executed fight between Jiro and Casa. Of course, she gets away with it, and this is the setup for the drama between the two later on the line. The real meat of the episode starts out on a boat, similarly to Episode 5, Portrait of Lana, from WATV. God, there I go, referencing WATV again! However, the episode itself takes place mostly on the ship itself, unlike Portrait of Lana, where it started off in the village and then was on the ship. Here, the ship really is all we get. In fact, the only time the episode wasn't about the ship was during the August flashback and the very, very last 15 seconds where, well, Mimiko's first bit of screen time is. Yeah, it takes a while for Mimiko to get some screen time, but I get why. This first episode's really good, all things considered. It has Jiro getting caught up in a fight between Kelly Wong's survival squad and Badrick's suppression team. Kotaro has a cute introduction bugging Jiro and having a brief but nice conversation with Chan. The episode also shows that Chan is a vampire, but that's pretty obvious with the series standards, and with everyone else in Kelly Wong's squad being vampires, it makes sense that Chan is one too. The fight between the suppression team, Kelly Wong, and Jiro naturally doesn't go well, and it riles up again. However, the fight is postponed when Johan Sang, one of Kelly Wong's survival travelers, uses a grenade in the midst of the chaos to allow them to escape via a motorboat. However, Kotaro is unfortunately blown away into the water, thus forcing Jiro to jump in and save him. Badrick's suppression team retreat via helicopter, and for the first episode, it was really good. Probably one of the best first episodes we've covered thus far. Kotaro's comedy was pretty fun, it had emotional bits, and it opens the series rather nicely. Again, one of the strongest first episodes, and mix that in with the brilliant intro scene Memories of Tomorrow, and the really somber but really emotional and atmospheric credit theme, really makes this quite the investing first episode. I also like the flashback where we see Kelly Wong and Sean, and explains why she takes care of her. Really nice stuff. But yeah, I should probably talk about that credit scene, because I don't often talk about credit scenes in my videos, surprisingly. I actually think this credit scene, despite being not as good as the intro, is pretty darn emotional, and I really like that. It shows all the people around Jiro seemingly vanishing away, as the people closest to him, Casa and Alice, naturally vanish away too. This credit scene is obviously supposed to be really symbolic, but I like it how it shows just how lonely Jiro is, even if he doesn't act like it. It's really good, and it hits the right notes. Of course, I also mentioned the CGI water in the animation for previews, but it's fine. Episode 2, Compromiser. The second episode obviously intends to slow things down after the Kulon Crusade flashback and the boat fight of episode 1. After the glorious intro Memories of Tomorrow, which I've already complimented the heck of that, we get the second flashback, which is a more lighthearted one, showing Jiro training with Pro, and it takes place way later on in the timeline, just before Jiro and Kotaru set off to, well, get into the special zone. It has a funny scene of Kotaru and the Dark Princess of the North. Kotaru sneezes on the sweater she made and dumbly wipes his nose on it, thus pissing her off. We see Kotaru is a lovable blockhead, and that's why Kotaru, well, just kind of resonates with me. The episode itself shows Jiro emerge from the sea, passed out with Kotaru. Mimiko meets them and offers her support as a company compromiser. We also get brief but ominous cutaways to the main villains, using Kulon bloods on poor victims and timing their transformation. Kelly Wong's travel squad meets up again with Jiro, Kotaru, and Mimiko as they reluctantly band together. This episode also shows how Jiro knows about the barrier around the special zone which prevents any Kulon children from getting in, and that's because, well, Jiro personally knew Sei, since Sei is the one that, keeps the barrier up, and that was shown in the first episode's flashback. However, before the series can get any more deeper with that and Kelly Wong's team, the Suppression Squad ambushes them. Jiro tries to hold them off, giving time for the others to escape, but he gets captured himself, thus ending the episode. Obviously, the second episode is intended to bring the characters together, though I do think the Suppression team having a little bit of action at the very end was a good way to close it off, and the whole cliffhanger of Jiro getting captured does make you want to see more, even if the others did escape. Now it's time for episode 3, the Kulon Bloodline. The opening flashback is probably the shortest and simplest one, showing Jiro and Alice make love, in the vampire ways of course, and that's all there really is to it. We get a cute scene of Kotaru sneaking around, meeting back up with Johan Sang, Kelly Wong, and Chan. Kotaru has some cute and wholesome fun with Chan making origami. Jiro gets interrogated by Badrick, but is freed by Rinsuke, who shows his hype and giddy nature by snagging the keys from Badrick, thus allowing him to let Jiro out of his cell. He's also nice enough to give Jiro his red gear and silver sword, so that's all good. Then, when Chan follows Kotaru's airplane, she, who am I kidding? She gets bit by a Kulon child, thus infecting her. Kotaru is captured by the Suppression team, and, well, they try and slaughter Kelly Wong's group, who doesn't know who the Kulon child is amongst their, squad of survivors. However, it's revealed in the midst of the fighting that Johan Sang is the Kulon child. Mimiko does a good job trying to intervene, even telling Badrick to back off, because you can't justify slaughter, but Johan Sang finally reveals his plan and takes advantage of the hesitation to proudly declare his stance. This begins our next major action sequence. I rather like how Jiro coming late to this fight, he isn't nearly as strong or flexing as he was in other fights. In fact, apart from the Auguste fights later on, Jiro does have challenges in the fight scenes. And I've already established how characters like Dante and Alucard are really unbalanced in fighting. However, I like it that Jiro does actively struggle, and here is your example. In this first encounter where Sang reveals his Kulon ties, he had the upper hand with several of Kelly Wong's squad turned against her. He used Chan to capture Kotaru, and Jiro didn't show up until the last second, in addition to the Suppression team being caught up in all the chaos. Johan Sang had a few vampiric abilities like the Hide Hand, which is basically vampiric telekinesis, and the Eye Ring, which, as I've said before, is basically the vampire equivalent to mind control or hypnosis. Jiro was also quite weak due to being interrogated and captured, so his energy output was substantially lower than it normally would be. Jiro did manage to cut off one of Johan Sang's arms, but he managed to get away knowing Jiro was fatigued. The episode ends with Johan making his escape, and it really encourages the viewers to see the next episode. One of the few cliffhanger episodes, I'd argue. Now it's time for episode 4, Old Blood. The flashback here is very early in the timeline, showing how Jiro and Alice met for the first time, almost coincidentally. Nothing too complex, but again, I like that. The first bit of this episode kind of caps off the last few of the Kulon children in Sang's squad, and then it goes to a slower scene, which is actually great. It simmers down the action quite nicely from the previous episode. We see Mimiko call out Jiro on his rash attempt to go after Kotaru in his weakened state. We get one fan service bite sequence, which actually isn't too bad, believe it or not. I'm not lying when I say it could have been way worse, though for how short it is, and for this being one of the few examples of fan service apart from Casa, I think we'll take it. They also show in the process of the fan service that the blood drain has effects on the person that gets bit as well. Now, Mimiko isn't a vampire, since only the Coulon children can turn others into vampires by just biting. I also like it that the bites have to be consensual in order for standard vampires to transfer, but not the Coulon children, and that's why they want to be wiped out. Drinking Mimiko's blood gives Jiro back his strength, and almost instantly, as now he can go after Johan Sang to stop him from entering the special zone, save Kotaru, liberate Chan and the other converted members of Kelly Wong's former traveling squad. Remember how I said Jiro was challenged during the fight scene of episode 3? Well, the second encounter in episode 4 on the bridge is the exact opposite. Jiro by this point was offered Mimiko's blood so he could replenish his lost stamina. This will create a good dynamic between the fights, allowing us to see Jiro in an advantaged versus disadvantaged state, and comparing the two is quite nice. The fight takes place on the Twilight Bridge just outside the special zone. Johan Sang tries to use the Coulon-controlled Chan to hold Kotaru hostage. However, in a heartbreaking scene, Kelly is forced to kill Chan so she doesn't help Sang. Quite the emotional scene, even if we didn't get a lot of screen time with these characters, but I mean, come on people, this is a little girl who just got shot by her guardian figure. Damn! On the bridge, Jiro demonstrates his power against such malicious tactics as Johan Sang's. He uses the entire hide hand to really rock the bridge, thus catching Johan Sang off guard. Doing this causes Sang to break down and try and justify what he did, but Jiro talks down to him. In a final-ditch effort, Johan Sang tries to run, but with a fluid throw, Jiro throws a silver katana, impaling Johan, and it was good. The episode ends, despite having Kelly Wong lament being the only survivor of her squad. She buries Chan's ashes, and it does end on a good note for Mimiko, Kotaru, and Jiro as they're let inside the special zone. We get some wacky antics with the three, before Mimiko offers them the night in the apartment. The very last scene shows Yaofuri run across the bridge and warp inside the special zone himself. All in all, episode 4 was really good! Episode 5, the Special Economic Zone, is probably the least noteworthy so far, as it's mostly exposition and setup. Though I'm fine with it here, unlike other examples in the retrospective, since with this coming after the action scenes of episode 1 through 4, in addition to being the first episode of Act 2, it serves as a good pace tamer and came at the best possible time. The flashback is mid-timeline, showing Jiro and Alice's unease when Casa worked with them before her betrayal. We see Casa was quite the rascal even back then, so it fits. This episode mainly serves as a Mimiko focus. It has an entire slapstick routine of waking up in her apartment and even showing her junior Hibari. There's even a cute scene of Kotaru hanging out the window and Mimiko throwing hot tea in his face. This is another general vampire power, by the way. I mean, we saw Jiro can walk on walls and jump ridiculously high, almost soaring, though vampires aren't able to fly in this universe, but they do have the power to resist gravity, thus allowing for long distance and high jumps, as well as being able to run alongside solid surfaces. Kotaru does this, and it shows that he is a vampire, so he has some minimal margin of power, even though not exhibiting weaknesses like the water or sunlight weaknesses Jiro has. This series does go out of the way to point this out. The only other noteworthy scenes apart from setting up August and showing the three main leaders, Sei, Kane, and Zellman, is, August defying regulation is shown, really early on with, him literally capturing a gal and drinking her. We also see Zellman as a lot different from the rest of the members of the Coven, despite being their leader. It shows that Zellman doesn't really bother, fitting in with the rest of the Coven. He's more just kind of, you do your thing, I do mine. Anyways, the very last of this episode is a brief, short action scene out on the boat market, with Jiro, Mimiko, and Kotaru avoiding a few bullets fired from Coven extremists
ending with August literally firing an anti-tank rifle at Jiro while he's busy. I mean, jeez. Quite the heavy firepower, my dude. This is another cliffhanger ending, but it quickly gets resolved in the next episode, since, let's be real here, people, Jiro ain't gonna lose that easily. I mean, come on, you can't just kill your protagonist like that, so don't worry. Episode 6, The Coven. The opening flashback is more played for laughs, with Alice being unable to pronounce Jiro's name, so it's cute. The start of the episode serves as the conclusion of the fight that began at the end of episode 5, as brief as it was. Jiro flexes on August and meets up with Zelman Clock, who we see, while being very untraditional and even admitting he could be considered a criminal, he does have some honor and knows when to take responsibility, even apologizing for August's rash actions, promising he'd punish him accordingly. Of course, August does not take too kindly to this and drinks from his own men. A bad idea since, well, as we saw with the main villains Zaza, Yalfari, and Casa in episode 2, they were testing Kulon blood to would trigger at certain times, and this one particular guy that August drank from just so happened to be infected with the delayed blood, meaning August is gonna become a Kulon child as well, and he's gonna go slowly crazy, and you can probably see where this is going. The middle of the episode is mainly world building with Sei and Kane telling Jiro the danger of coming into the special zone. Yes, Jiro is powerful and a legend, as well as being extremely helpful during the Hong Kong Crusade, during the Kulon Shock. However, they do also have to admit that Jiro's, well, staying in the special zone is a really dangerous thing, because it comes to the cost of pinning a large target on his back. I've said it before, I rather like the dynamic of the vampire affairs in this universe. It's really political, and it does the job quite nicely in making all the characters' motivations not feel just shoehorned in. The episode includes with another August encounter, with him being significantly less confident and downright careless this time. I mean, the dude's going crazy, downright to the point of Jiro making fun of him, asking if he's just clearly insane or really intoxicated. And August, well, using a giant silver axe tries to behead Jiro, but Jiro manages to fend him off, and August runs away angrily. However, Mimiko's apartment gets bombed mysteriously. Thankfully, no one was inside, but now the three protags gotta find another place to stay. All in all, episode 6 finally does bring back the action, and it's good. Now let's move on to episode 7, Silver Blade. This episode is one of my personal favorites. The flashback subtly pokes towards the idea of blood and water flowing, which naturally ties into the symbolism of the vampiric weakness and strength. I like this. The episode cuts between the Special Zone's leading figures meeting and Jiro going to the Coven Mansion to teach August and his men a lesson. We also see more of the main villains like Yalfari, who leaves Zaza to see the famous Silver Blade, which is, again, one of Jiro's nicknames. Zaza also lets Casa into the Special Zone since, as I've stated before, Zaza has the power to possess humans, and with him being in the body of a human, this allows him to get both Yalfari, Casa, and himself past the barrier. The episode is mainly action, with good cutaways to the meetings and villains when it's needed to slow down a bit. The last fight with August is short, but good. It's a really tense coin flip duel, and funnily enough, it kinda actually reminds me of Brilliant Dynamite's Neon from Trigun. I mean, think about it. Both are gang leaders, or well, pivotal figure in this gang, since I don't know if Neon was necessarily the leader of the Bad Lad gang, but he definitely was an influential figure. Same thing with August. He's not exactly the leader, but he is a high-ranking member. Both are crazy and had really over-the-top plans, and of course, the final fight with each of them ends on a coin flip duel. Huh. Kinda strange. I figured... I don't compare a lot of stuff to Trigun, but I was surprised to see a lot of comparisons between, well, August and Brilliant Dynamite's Neon, and we know how much I love the two-part Sandstormer episode, so if anything, I guess that's a compliment to episode 7 Silver Blade of Black Blood Brothers. Jiro obviously wins the duel, but August tries to get the last laugh having his remaining Coven lackeys attack Mimiko and Kotaru, who were merely watching in fear. However, in a surprise turn of events, Yafuri shows up and oddly kills the converted Coven member, thus saving Mimiko and Kotaru. Jiro asks who Yafuri is, and he simply says, "I was sent here by my sister Kasa," thus ending the episode on a tense note. We know Jiro really does not think highly of Kasa, and especially hearing Yafuri bring it up nonchalantly, it makes sense that Jiro would be really off-put by this. Episode 8, Protector. The flashback this time around is focused on Kasa, when she left the Warlock house before her ultimate betrayal. It also shows Kane used to serve her back then. The start of the episode here is a great and pretty well animated, albeit short clash with Yafuri Chao and Jiro Mochizuki. I really like how Jiro got the disadvantage here, since Yafuri really picked on the favor of Jiro being less energized after wasting his energy fighting the Coven in August. Yafuri is upset by Jiro being tired, not living up to his legendary title. However, the battle gets interrupted by the suppression team, thus forcing Yafuri to retreat, not wanting to get caught and ruin Kasa's plan. Upon returning to the hideout, Yafuri and Zaza get some snarky back and forth with Kasa being out. Zaza shows that he clearly knows what he's doing, being the support role and the strategist of, well, the main villains, and Yafuri shows his zeal and really cocky nature, even trying to pick a fight with Zaza, despite, well, being allies. The rest of the episode is mainly just set up for the climax, with Kotaru running off to speak with Mimiko and Jiro trying to find him. Mimiko also gets put to sleep by Jiro's eye raid since he tries to not get her involved, but of course with it being a setup for the climax, Mimiko's gonna get involved. However, Jiro has some trouble finding Kotaru, surprise surprise, and he even goes out of his way to ask Kane, who, as I've stated before, didn't really get along all that well, with help, and normally Kane wouldn't help given their relation. However, Jiro manages to get talked down by Kane for being hasty. However, even after a few hits back and forth, Kane honorably helps Jiro by sending one of his subordinates to assist, showing he does respect Jiro even if they don't always get along. This subordinate is naturally Rinsuke, the flamboyant investigator guy that got him on the boat in episode 1 and gave him back his gear in episode 3 when he got captured. I really do like how the series is really building off itself, even if some characters clearly get more focus or screen time than the other. This transitions nicely into episode 9, The 11th Yard, which, similar to episode 7, Silverblade, is another one of my favorites. Again, this series really benefited from having no filler, because it means the anime doesn't waste time in the episode itself, and even when it does with the funnier scenes, it works, and it gives more characters that had, more lighthearted tendencies like Kotaru, more moments to go off of. Yeah, episode 9, The 11th Yard, is another one of my favorites, as I said before. The flashback reveals a little more about Alice and her relation to Kasa. Nothing more, nothing less. And this episode shows a good side of Zelma with him helping Kotaru find Mimiko, despite being labeled a criminal. Currently, Mimiko is with Hibari and Kelly Wong, who supposedly found leads to the Kulon children's involvement, and even their hideout in the special zone. It would make sense for Kelly Wong to do a little digging with the Kulon did to her child Chan and the rest of her, traveling group, so it makes sense Kelly Wong would be very provocative. The highlights of this episode was, first and foremost, the amazing fight between Kane and Yafuri. I mean, seriously. Kane hadn't really done a whole lot apart from being grouchy and being a voice of reason, but this is a pretty good scene all things considered. I know I did kind of rag on the animation a bit earlier, but I really do like the fight with Kane and Yafuri. I mean, look, Kane got such a great flex on this cocky little brat. I mean, I did like Yafuri a lot more, understanding why he'd go out of his way to fight and prove himself, but Kane putting him down and literally beating him senseless was such a gratifying thing to me as a kid. Maybe it's because I hated Yafuri that much, but whatever. And the whole scene of Kane transforming into his blue wolf form was quite the cool way to conclude the fight. Yalfrey isn't dead as Kane takes him to containment to be imprisoned, but Yalfrey isn't quite done yet. Again, I did nitpick the animation here a little bit, but that doesn't take away from a badass fight. The last bit of the episode has Kelly actually get inside the enemy hideout, where Zaza is luckily passed out due to possessing another body. Mimiko does a little bit of examining, only for a neat little twist revealing Kelly Wong isn't actually there, and it was Casa who shapeshifted to look like her, thus fooling Mimiko. Again, another cliffhanger ending, but with this being so close to the end, it naturally makes sense. Following that is episode 10, The Order Coffin Company. Alright, I'm actually not gonna lie, this episode I don't really have a lot to talk about. I know, it's a little weird with it being so close to the end, but the only real highlights of this episode are Casa and Mimiko talking, Zelman and Kotaru briefly fighting Casa, Sei and Zhang fighting Zaza, who had planted a bomb in the main building, and Jiro talking with Rinsuke. However, apart from that, this episode it's good, I mean, I liked it. I just don't really have a lot to analyze with it being, well, more climactic, and really, if anything, the more noteworthy events happen future on down the line. I know, I'm sorry, I really do want to say more about this episode, and I really did like seeing Zelman use his Eye Ignite. It was quite cool, and, I mean, Zelman had, been involved, but didn't really do a lot of fighting, so this episode was a good chance, to show off his power, but I just don't have that much to say on this one. It's a good episode, Just because I don't have a lot to say doesn't prevent it from being entertaining. The very last scene is plot significant with Yalfrey getting released from his capture and re-energized by Zaza. Again, this episode I don't have a lot to say about, but it is plot significant and is still entertaining. But, yeah, most of that I just save for the next 2 episodes anyways. Episode 11, The Ocean, is the start of the climax. The flashback shows Jiro's first bite from Alice, essentially bringing him into the Sage's bloodline, as well as converting him to a vampire. We also see Casa back then, in addition to Kane in his wolf form too. This episode has a massive Kulon infestation attack with all the people that had the blood drinking from them. Remember, the vampires being very political in this world, they need blood to survive, or at least to stay energized, so it makes sense that Casa could infect some of the blood packs with, well, the Kulon blood that was timed to trigger a delayed transformation. Yalfrey and Zaza steal a boat, and the big three Sorry about that. The big 3 leaders use their powers to assist the suppression team and fending off the Kulon children. I mean, heck, Sei turns into a giant dragon and even releases the barrier. We get some good dialogue with Mimiko and Kotaru telling Jiro he has to stop feeling obligated to run away, since he isn't a problem for the special zone. While yes, they might act like he paints a giant target on their back, they need him now more than ever, and if he does help them with this attack, it's the best way to prove he can stay in the zone and hold his own. There also are some coincidental lines that match up with Alice said about the ocean, and this causes Jiro to rethink his actions. While this is going on, Kane and Zelman are trying to fight, well, Yalfrey and Zaza on the boat, and Sei in his dragon form is trying to destroy all the other basic Kulon children monsters that are throughout the special zone. I do like it how we get to see more of the other characters' powers, and that's really good. I mean, you usually watch superheroes or action scenes, or really just action genre movies in general for, well, the action scenes. I mean, you don't watch an X-Men series to not see them use their powers. You don't watch a Superman movie only to see Clark Kent, or Kent Clark. Whatever. I'm going way too off track. Anyways. However, in the midst of Jiro and Mimiko's conversation, Zaza uses one of the bodies nearby and possesses it, shooting Jiro into the water. The episode ends on a tense note with Mimiko jumping in to save Jiro, thus setting up for the last episode. Episode 12, For the Eternal Pulse of Time, Episode 12, For the Eternal Pulse of Mind Bloodline, I would offer this blood in totality. Jeez, what a long title. I mean, good gosh, that title is... Huh. The flashback is cute but wholesome, as the scene of Alice and Jiro in a toy store. Mimiko jumps into the water and saves Jiro from Zaza's attack by offering her blood. Jiro drinks and gets a massively enjoyable final fight where his boosted power contributes greatly. Mimiko with the blood resonance learns that Kotaru is actually the reincarnation of Alice Eve, thus explaining his femboy-like tendencies and attachment to Jiro. Zelman uses his Eye Ignite to throw the boat off its course. Kane manages to pursue Yelfari and Zaza. However, Zelman and Kane are, well, put out of the fight with the boat getting out of Zelman's Eye Ignite range and, well, Kane getting knocked off the boat. Jiro has a climactic and very well matched fight with Kasa. This is a great final fight with quite the tense, well, atmosphere. Jiro is disadvantaged even with Mimiko's blood. I mean, he's out on the water, it begins raining by the very end, and while yes, he does have the sword play over Kasa, with it being a 3 versus 1 fight for the most part, it's quite the challenge. However, Jiro manages to kill Yelfari and Zaza supposedly, thus leading to finally get after Kasa. However, as it starts raining, Kasa is about to get away, but Jiro leaps for it and kills Zaza by impaling him, again supposedly, and then proceeds to stab Kasa. However, the boat crashes and Jiro manages to get out of it by staying on top of one of the pillars. The rest of the Kulon children have supposedly died, but there may have been a few escapees, and we get a cute, albeit symbolic ending that is really open, but works. However, I do want to talk about something that I had massively complained about before. The ending. This was my major gripe I had as a kid. I feel like the ending was way too open-ended, especially for the villains. Now, we can be sure Yelfari died. Yelfari got slashed across the chest, and I doubt he would survive even with a boat crash. You might be thinking Zaza may have survived given the fact that, well yes, it's shown that he can go to other bodies, however they never specified the limit, but I do think Zaza died there, and I have a bit of supporting evidence to prove this.
Zaza, no!
See, why would Kasa scream out for Zaza and clearly worry for him if she didn't know the limit of his powers or know he couldn't survive that? So I definitely think Zaza is likely dead. However, what about Kasa herself? Well, yes, her voice did echo in Jiro's head at the very end saying, "I had fun, Jiro," in addition to saying they probably got away. I actually do think Kasa did die. However, it can be misinterpreted that way. Now, you want to know why I think Kasa is dead? Well, one, I definitely think her saying, "I had fun, Jiro," to mess with Jiro one final time, making him think she's still alive, when really she was just dead and that was her spirit talking, is totally in character for Kasa. And, point number two, the biggest point I have, this series had absolutely no manga to work on. Yes, you did just hear me correctly. Black Blood Brothers had the anime come out first. Now, okay, there was a manga, but it came out afterwards, and I'm actually pretty surprised this series was as good as it was for something that made the anime come out first. To be fair, there was a light novel. However, light novels don't exactly have a lot of pictures in them, in addition to the fact that back in 2006, a lot of people really didn't talk about light novels as much as they do now. I mean, they were heard of, and I did know a few people that read them, but most of the time people either preferred the manga or the anime. And it's ironic how the light novel came out first, then the anime, and then the manga. And the manga actually doesn't even continue the story, as it's more just a bit of wacky side stories, thus having me believe this series is ending then and there. Now, do I think the series would have benefited from a second season? Yeah, but doesn't need one if you can interpret the same. Okay, I understand if people are maybe a little bit frustrated with the anime because Sei said it seems they got away. However, I do think, that's in character for Kasa as well to mess around with Sei and basically everyone else, make them think she's still alive when really she's dead, thus having a wild goose chase. I mean, again, do I think Black Blood Brothers really could benefit from a second season? Yes, and I do want to see more. However, this ending, similar to Hellsing Classic, can stand on its own, and the series can end here, and I won't have too many complaints. Now, with all that said and done, this is a really good story, especially with no manga to go off of before it, and for an anime that came out in 2006, it being this high quality, you think it'd be an easy 10 out of 10, right? Well, not quite. Like it was close. It was really, really close, but I want to give Black Blood Brothers a perfect score, but I really can't. I really can't, and I am so sorry. I mean, while yes, I personally am fine with the ending now, I do understand other people being a bit off put by that. However, at the very least, the ending can be interpreted as conclusive, something the clear card arc of Sakura doesn't even get. But the fact that that is still out there definitely brings it down a few points, in addition to the fact that, again, I do feel like the anime could have benefited from more. However, for what we got, it was really good, and even if it doesn't get a perfect 10 out of 10, it really doesn't need to. And I'm really surprised Black Blood Brothers was this good upon rewatching it. Keep in mind, back then I would have said it was a 5 out of 10, just like WATV, but this was a fantastic rewatch. I was really surprised it was this entertaining, again, with my prior sibling anime memory traditions trotting at the back of my head, as minimal as they were, and I can safely say this is a great anime. Black Blood Brothers is actually a really good gateway anime to me. I think this is a good place to start if you want to get into general anime, if you ask me. I said Chrono Crusade could work as a good start. However, I did kind of overlook the fact that Chrono Crusade had some religious themes that might throw a few people off, but if you can take that, then Chrono Crusade is naturally better. However, Black Blood Brothers, as I said before, is an excellent starting point for anime newcomers. It has a great cast, decent animation, good action, superb audio, a deeper to grasp situation that's deeper for those who want to overlies. It's easy, short, and doesn't waste a lot of time, and the episode length is fair but short. So, while not nearly getting a 10 out of 10, as I said before, Black Blood Brothers really doesn't need to be perfect, since it was really enjoyable thus far, and that is why I'm giving Black Blood Brothers a 9.5 out of 10. It was really good. I'm Quinn866. Have a good one.